Hello everyone, and welcome to VitaIsland, where the sun never sets, I would like to say, but I can't say that. I will talk a bit about that today. Most of you probably know that I've been a big fan of the Vita for many years, and I've done quite a number of videos on and about the Vita on this channel now for over 3 years. But as we all know, the Vita is basically finished, certainly as a commercial device. It lives on in the hacking and game developers community, but for those of us who rely on the Vita store and Sony supporting the Vita and its games, it's curtain time. Now, a few years ago, a well-known Vita Islander called Sandeep Rai, who runs a channel called Too Old for Gaming, published a series of books on the Vita. It was a Kickstarter project. It was well received. He published 3 books in paperback format. The first book was re-released in a deluxe edition. There was so much demand. And I've been using these books as a resource for reference, for browsing, and just, for sheer Vita fandom, really. Now that the Vita game store has officially finished offering new Vita games, Sandeep decided he wanted to make one final book on the Vita, a book that brought everything together that he had written about and published before, and then review it, expand it, make it the best possible book on the Vita out there, the most authoritative, the most precise and accurate. And to that end, he started another Kickstarter for Vita Means Life. And that's a catchphrase that's used a lot on VitaIsland. If you're on Twitter, you're probably familiar with the hashtag VitaIsland. Now, the Kickstarter finished a while ago, and since then, Sandeep very kindly sent me what's called a pre-release copy of the book, which means he can try out the format and see how it will all turn out. It gives other Vita Islanders like me a chance for some final input and some feedback, which hopefully is helpful to send the book off to the printers, which is happening in April. I've been a great believer throughout my years on VitaIsland that we only achieve things if we work together. And that's exactly what I'm doing with many others, especially people like Sandeep, who have contributed so much to the Vita community. We have a very collegial relationship, and to me it's important that we realize we can only really achieve things if we talk to each other and work together. Unfortunately, the delivery of the book by mail was delayed. We missed the deadline for the Kickstarter, but please don't worry about it, because the book will be available for ordering, and I will put all the relevant details, everything you need, in the description below the video. So just unfurl that, click on show more, and you'll find it. In this video today, I want to cover this book and what it offers from 2 perspectives. One is from the point of view of a person who's not purchased any previous Vita books and is coming completely new to the subject. And the other viewpoint is for people who had already purchased one or all of the previous Vita books. What does the new book bring? Is it worth upgrading, so to speak, for you? And I'll try and answer that as well as I can. I've gone very thoroughly through the book. I've compared it with the original paperbacks, and I've discussed various points with Sandeep, who's given me some good background information. To start with, the book weighs in at exactly 980 grams, which probably means that the final product will be around the 1 kilo mark. Now, I was a bit concerned that it might be too heavy to hold and handle, especially since I do like browsing and reading at bedtime. I was quite pleased that I found I can still just comfortably hold the book. It just sneaks in that it isn't too heavy, because that's always a concern with hardback books, and this is a very solid hardback. It's well produced. This is going to stand the test of time, I think. There are 400, just under 400 pages in the book at the moment, and I believe there will be at least 400 or just over 400 in the final printed version. What about the cover design? I would call it understated. It's not something that screams out at you. I like to think it's the kind of book that would feel at home amongst technical handbooks, university-type books, biographies and histories. It's a serious-looking cover, I think, and that probably suits the purpose of the book very well, because it is, after all, trying to be, if not the official, at least the most authoritative history and guide on the Vita and its games. So for those who don't know the books at all, what is actually in the book? Well, a large part of the book is taken up with the story, and that is the history of the Vita from its inception right through to the final days when production was called off in Japan. So Sandeep starts well before the Vita and looks at the history of handheld consoles. And then in January 2011, the first prototype appeared. But he also covers a lot of side topics, things that will interest any Vita owner or prospective Vita owner, like remote play or PS Now. You may think there's only one double-sided page devoted to each of such topics, and I can assure you that Sandeep packs a lot of information into each page he writes. There is no fluff and no wasted frills in there. A look at how crowdfunding had an important place in the Vita's history. Then the interesting and sensitive topic of hacking, and that was, of course, a huge issue, both for Sony and in the Vita community. The very beginnings of limited run games, which was, of course, closely associated with the Vita and Vita games. That's how it all started. And there is a post-mortem, which ends on the note that Vita means life. We in the Vita community haven't given up on the Vita. We play our Vitas almost every day. The online communities are shrinking. For example, only very, very recently, in the last few weeks, the server for the popular game Freedom Wars was finally shut down. And there was a flurry of activity just prior to that. People still wanting to get their final trophies, online trophies and platinums. And this is information, up-to-the-minute information, that Sandeep is including in the final book. For people who already have the existing paperback volumes, I can say that an important part of the updating will be bringing up-to-the-minute information into the history section, interviews with developers, especially those who worked up to the very deadline, trying to bring their games to the Vita store. Topics like the games that were published by East Asia Soft, some of them received physical only releases, so didn't even appear on the digital store. That was a new development. So really a complete update to the current time, as well as going through the existing information and, going through it all with a tooth comb to make sure it really is absolutely accurate. Now, the question also arises, why have a hardback one-volume edition? And the answer is there was actually a lot of demand for it. A lot of people on VitaIsland were asking about the possibility. The reason being that it's easier for a reference rather than having to handle 3 separate volumes. I sometimes struggle with that a bit, like I want to quickly find a piece of information I know is in there, but I can't remember which volume it's in, so I'm, hunting through them. Having it all in one volume and indexed is a great advantage, I think. So that's the purpose of the one-volume edition, and of course to have a volume that will last and look good on the bookshelf. One feature of the original paperback editions were the many and beautifully printed images. They really jump off the page. I'm happy to report that the same standard applies in the hardback volume. It's the same smooth quality of paper, and I've looked really, really closely at the photos, and I can't see any difference between the ones in the paperback edition and the ones here in the hardback edition. What else is in the book apart from the history of the Vita? There's a very big section of interviews with people who were directly involved with the Vita, either at Sony or as developers and publishers. And finally, there are the retrospectives. Those are overviews and reviews of important games in the Vita library. And let me tell you, there are a lot in that section. This is just the first tranche of the games covered. So this is a really, really huge section of the book. And it's the kind of coverage that, even though I have, of course, played many or even most of the games, I still find it interesting reading and rereading the information about the games, and I often still discover new information or tidbits. All you Muv-Luv fans, I know you're lurking out there. Sandeep also covers the backward compatibility on the Vita. And there's the listing, as was in the paperback edition, of all the physical games released by year, and all the digital games as well. The different models and accessories. It's really an all-round book that would delight any Vita fan, I think. If you're interested, as I said, details will be in the description below. Sandeep will open up a listing for the book in his Etsy store, probably in March, and you can then pre-order a copy if you like. Now there's just one more interesting item I want to mention. Sandeep had several stretch goals on the Kickstarter for this book, and they were all unlocked, by the way. And the very last one was for a collector's handbook. Well, you know, I'm a Vita collector, so that was really exciting news for me. And I am looking forward to that handbook. I know he's working on it madly, so knowing Sandeep, I think it'll probably turn out really beautiful. Now, this is obviously a reward that, first of all, goes to the Kickstarter backers. But I have a feeling this might possibly be of interest to a wider group of people. So I asked Sandeep about the possibility of this collector's handbook maybe becoming available also for purchase at some point. And his response was he'll be watching the initial feedback and reaction to that handbook, and if there is sufficient demand, I think he would consider it. I'll obviously be showing you the final print edition once I receive it, but that might take a bit of time in the mail, and also the collector's handbook. And I know other people will be covering it as well, so you should be able to see for yourself what it looks like and then see if you're interested. But I thought I'd mention it because it strikes me as the sort of thing that might just fly under the radar, and I just have a seventh sense that this is going to be something special. So that was today's coverage of an important Vita topic, a sort of collaboration between me and Sandeep. I hope you found it interesting. I put a little video clip collage at the end here just for your entertainment, really, and for fun. Please enjoy it. As always, thank you very much for watching, and especially for your support over the years, Vita Islanders. I do appreciate it. Please keep well. I'm Food for Dogs. Bye-bye. Because I know I have a lot of Vita Island fans here on my channel. I'm Food for Dogs, and today I want to talk Vita for Vita fans. 7 Scarlet. A quick unbox. This edition sold out. PS Vita operation. Rize and Teddy from Persona 4 Gold. Isn't that absolutely marvellous? Vita memory cards. What I call Sony's retraction. This game came out very, very early in the Vita's life. Here we are. Boy, do we have a lot to talk about. That was enough, and I didn't need any more. Welcome, Vita Islanders. I am Food for Dogs,